I'm Asger, you can ask me anything. Today I'm going to try and answer this question. Is meritocracy the perfect form of government? First, let's just define meritocracy. A lexical definition goes something along these lines. A system in which advancement is based on individual ability or achievement. I'm actually going to go a little further just to have a clear working definition here. Intelligence or talent plus effort equals merit. So in other words, we're dealing with a society where merit, your skills, and the work you put into something combined gives you status in the society. Now, first I want to go over some obvious benefits of meritocracy, and then we're going to look at some less obvious potential downsides. One of the most obvious benefits of a meritocracy is that it doesn't matter who your family is, where they come from, and what their status is. This is a society that only judges and values you on the basis of your talents, your skills, and your effort. I mean, this whole nepotism thing isn't as widespread as it used to be, but it really used to be the entire foundation upon which society was built in most countries. Another benefit is that your ethnic, national, or cultural background also doesn't matter. I mean, all that really matters is how good are you at the thing you're trying to achieve or the industry you're in. It also leads to less discrimination and less racism. After all, in a true meritocracy, the person who fits the job description best and seems to be the most talented and the person with the highest integrity, willing to put in the most hard work, will get the job regardless of his or her background, which sounds awesome. So less nepotism. Also, when we look at companies, if companies are able and allowed to hire the person who's simply the best person for the job, we must also assume that this leads to more innovation, over the long term at least, and also simply just to more profits. And then there's the psychological aspect of not living in a meritocracy. Imagine that you were over and over and over again, people passed you by, or even deliberately avoided you, not because you were the best. You are, in fact, the best for the job, but they choose someone else because they need to fill some quota or need to virtue signal to the world that, yes, we are a company that values diversity and blah, 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 blah. I think we could all probably handle that experience once or twice, but if it becomes systemic, if you are the most talented person in some niche, and if you over and over again, in spite of you being the very best, you're being avoided and other people are favored out of some ideological position, that is to me almost the hallmark of an unjust society. So we have a really strong case for a meritocracy, for us striving to build a society like this. But there are some, as I stated, less obvious downsides to it. Let's go over some of them. So some cultures, it could be national cultures or it could be local cultures, subcultures even, some cultures may not favor learning or the building of expertise as a value. These cultures will over time suffer a setback. Statistically speaking, these groups can almost only be left behind. This can not only lead to civil unrest internally in countries, but it could also lead to war when some countries are simply left behind in the global competition. Something else, in an increasingly globalized world where the whole world essentially is one big marketplace, at least if we choose to perceive it as such, even very smart and talented people, even people who work very hard, can be left behind. I was just thinking about this. This is just an example. So I'm going to use my dad as an example. He and I are both psychologists. So back when he graduated in, I don't know exactly when, early 70s, I'm guessing, something like that, he was one of, I'm guessing here, a few thousand psychologists in the country. And he really only had to compete with those people. He just had to position himself as being in the top of that segment. I mean, it's a couple thousand people. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm sure it wasn't. I know he put in a lot of hard work to pull that off. But myself, today, first of all, my degree is not from an Ivy League university. Number two, I compete with pretty much any English-speaking person with a master's or a PhD in psychology, I don't even know how many people that is, I'm guessing at least 1 million globally, could be even more. And competition is just so hard because all the companies use meritocracy as their hiring criteria. Of course they do. Why wouldn't they? It would be completely idiotic of them not to do so. But I'm just saying, I'm facing at least 1 million people in competition. Am I up to par? Am I in the best 1% of those people? I don't know that I can honestly say that I am. The point I'm trying to make here is really just that you can be talented and you can work really hard, but maybe because of your industry being so big and because of the marketplace being global now, you may have a hard time to join the very best in your specific industry. And that again seems unfair. Another potential downside is that people who don't join the top of this meritocracy pyramid will probably, per definition, have lower status in a meritocracy. And then there's another problem in that it may be seen as something they earned. They brought this on themselves because, one, they didn't have the intelligence or talent, and or two, they didn't put in the work. Now, it's a fact, at least in my book, it's a fact that random events sometimes happen, and sometimes people are just really unlucky. Those people would also, in a true meritocracy, be viewed as someone who brought their own misery on themselves, which again, doesn't strike me as fair. And then, again, we also just have other people. I mean, if you grow up in some Mumbai slum, do you really have the opportunity to nurture your talent and your skills? I mean, even though you have the potential to do so, is it actually gonna happen? Again, something that seems very unfair and unjust. Then there's a psychological / systemic issue as well. Now, if my success can be attributed to me and only me, why would I give away any of my wealth? After all, I earned it, didn't I? With my hard work and my grit and my integrity and my intelligence. Why would I want to give any of it away? Or more importantly, perhaps, why would I want to create legislation that forces me to share any of my well-earned and deserved goods? Let's just look at a few other aspects here that can't really be placed as good or bad intrinsically. Personal responsibility. I'm actually really in favor of people taking more personal responsibility. That's something, I think that the time and culture and just the general vibe that I grew up in didn't really teach me personal responsibility, maybe even a little bit to some degree the opposite. And this comes from a person who took his first job when he was 10, but still, it was just like a zeitgeist, I guess, at the time. Some people might say that we can never have a truly merit-based system. No society will ever exist where everybody gets exactly what they deserve. I mean, nothing happens in a vacuum, as I like to say. If we started moving towards a true meritocracy, we would do so with the current understandings of reality that we have right now, with the current societal structures in place. So it would never be a true and just meritocracy. There would be some coincidental stuff happening, whether it be from culture or just sheer randomness. That would be another source to potential unfairness. But again, you could say that about any political system. Finally, I just want to say, as someone who runs a small business, such as myself and many of you watching probably, you will know this. If you're looking to bring someone into your business, you certainly don't have the privilege, and I call this a privilege, you don't have the privilege to not hire people based on their merits. I mean, any startup is not only fighting the odds, but also the competition. And if the competition, you just cannot afford to put yourself at a disadvantage. And at the end of the day, whether you hire the right person, quote unquote, it can actually make or break your entire business. It truly can. So forcing people to be anti-meritocratic, that certainly strikes me as very unjust and very silly, and something that we really have to avoid. This is where my opinion is at odds with that of many feminists, modern or traditional feminists. I mean, I support them in many other areas, but not in this respect. I mean, we cannot force companies, let alone small businesses, or anyone really, to hire, or maybe rather to not hire someone who is clearly the most qualified person for the job. That is just, I mean, that is beyond distasteful. It strikes me as true injustice. It really, truly does. But that being said, I think I also just gave a pretty good case that we can't have a pure meritocracy. So that leaves me with the question, can we have some weird hybrid system? I actually sort of think we do right now, but I also think that in the very long run, that's not going to keep working out for us. I mean, it's even debatable whether it is right now. So just to sum up and answer the question, is meritocracy a perfect form of government? I wanted to say that I think it is, but I don't think it is. I think it's a very important component. As long as we have an economy or a general system that's structured in the way our current system is, we need to allow people and businesses to choose the best candidate. Let's use a hospital as an example, right? You would think that the number one and the only priority for a hospital is to get the best doctors possibly, the best nurses possibly, the best caretakers possibly, right? You don't want to, but if you just change your hiring practices, or even worse, if you're forced to change your hiring habits, we can end up with a hospital filled with incompetent doctors and nurses, and over time, that's going to lead to deaths, right? You can't seriously sit there and tell me that if we force hospitals to fill in some arbitrary diversity quotas, that's not going to have any consequences for the users. And if the users are vulnerable people for whom it's a matter of life and death, I mean, we just have to forget about that. But that being said, I don't think we can have a morally just or humane or graceful society. I mean, I'm sort of searching for the right terms here, as you could probably hear, but I don't think we can build a society with as little suffering as possible and as much well-being as possible, where everyone is seen and valued on the basis of their personal merit. Maybe if we could separate our professional identities a little more from our civilian or private identities, maybe that could solve the problem. Because I don't think it has to be a problem that business and markets are being governed on the basis of merits. I think they have to be. In anything, I mean, anything else is just a joke. I mean, and I like to think that that would still be my opinion if I didn't run a small business myself. I think and trust it would, actually. Anyway, I am actually planning a longer podcast episode on meritocracy. Not only meritocracy, but also just this whole idea of searching for and trying to build the ideal society. You can even call it a utopia. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned over on MetaQuest. I'm leaving a link for that below. Right now, I just want to say thanks for watching Ask Asger. Don't forget to ask me a question in the comments below. I am Asger, and you can ask me everything. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Cheers.